Hi everyone, welcome to Ecommerce Exchange. This is the podcast where we talk about online retail and marketing. This week, accompanying me, as ever, we have Lewis, our marketing director. Hello, Lewis.
Hello, Matt. You
How's it
okay?
going?
I'm good. I'm superb. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to see you again.
It's good.
And joining us for this episode, we have our colleagues Molly Allen. Hello, Molly.
Hi.
Hi. Molly looks after our organic social media strategy for our clients at Eastside Co. And also joining us today, we have Rob Lewis. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. You?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good.
Rob does our paid social media strategy for our clients. So between them, they've got social covered. So we thought we'd get them in for a chat to talk about differences between paid and organic, how the two work together, how those strategies fit into broader marketing strategies, and the state of social media in 2020. So just have a chat about that, really. So so if we start off, so just talking about, for people who might not know, what is the difference between paid social media and organic social media strategies?
Who wants to go?
Let's go with Mol.
All right. So, I mean, organic content is essentially, it's the content that you post on your feed on a daily basis. So it's the free content. Paid is obviously what you paid for. Organic is the free aspect of it. And it's the content that will be shown in your audience's feed. So the more they engage with your content, the more of your posts that they will eventually be served. It's the kind of the free content aspect of the platforms.
Okay.
And paid social covers any paid aspect of advertising across all social platforms, obviously fits in with organic, and there's a lot of cross-pollination between the two. My area of expertise and what I manage is called paid social, but it might also be called social media marketing, social media advertising, all falls under the umbrella of paid engagement, and does link in with organic quite a lot, as we'll discuss as we move forward.
That's the thing. I think historically, so paid social, organic social existed before paid social.
Yeah.
So when businesses just started to post, like Molly was saying, just on their feeds. And then the early days of paid social was all just about boosting your organic content.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now paid social is much more of an acquisition channel. So it sits on par with PPC, like Google Ads, and any other kind of advertising, really.
Totally.
But like the guys are saying, they sit much more hand in hand now than ever.
Yeah,
for sure. I think like the rise of paid social as well kind of coincides with particularly Facebook like throttling organic reach. So before organic, you could really reach your audience. You could get huge amounts of impressions without any spend. And then of course, as Facebook has further monetized the platform, we've seen organic reach drop. But from my point of view, and I'm sure Molly will agree, a brand needs a strong organic presence because customers, you hit your Instagram, and if you've got 3 poor quality assets, are you going to click on an ad if you see it from that brand? So although it's more difficult to reach a customer with organic now, it's still totally essential to have like a strong presence from my point of view, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think they both do go hand in hand. It's that thing of, if you have amazing paid ads, then what about someone clicks them, and then your organic is barely used, hardly touched, poor assets.
Yeah,
it doesn't give off a great impression. It's kind of, if you're going to spend thousands of pounds trying to drive traffic to your site through amazing looking ads, you kind of need both of them to look equally as good. The same as if you have a really great organic strategy, but then your ads look really poor. It can then cause an audience to feel confused. They don't really know who the brand are, and it can it can look messy, and I think it can always, in fact, sometimes I look a bit spammy, and I think customers can find it less trustworthy. It's kind of like, is this, who are they? It definitely is like super important to have the two really entwined and a really strong strategy across both channels.
Okay,
for sure.
So do you think there's an element then that as businesses started using the platforms, that they kind of just thought, oh, we can monetize this a bit more, and then I've said to users, actually, if you want to use our platforms and you want to reach your audiences, you've got to pay for it now. And therefore they've kind of suppressed the reach of the organic stuff so that you've got to pay.
Yeah.
Is there still, could businesses still just use organic strategy, or is that not going to work?
I mean, you can. I think if you're a really small brand and stuff, like, you know, if you're starting off, you can, or in fact, if you're almost on the other end, like a huge brand, if you're like
exactly,
then probably But you know, if you're Nike and you've got, you know, they're huge. You know, paid strategy is still massively important, but probably not as, because you already get so much website traffic anyway. So then your organic might be more important to you to have really great assets, engage your audience, big, huge campaigns, because doing that more creative stuff automatically drives people. But then again, if you're a really small brand, no one knows who you are. So you can have a really great looking Instagram channel or face channel or both, but then no one's really seeing it. So I think, you know, there is, but again, if you're say a small local independent shop who only really is serving to your area, then on the other hand, you probably could just use organic because you're going by passing trade a little bit. So, you know, I think having both is better, but yes, if you just don't have the money, it's working out which one would be better for you. But then at the same time, is it better to kind of have them both scaled smaller, but you've got them both, than have so much money put in organic, but not a lot in one, or loads put in paid, but not enough money in the other? So I think having a split between them is kind of quite an important thing, really.
I think I thought about it, for instance, a brand that is just starting out and wants to grow purely organically. There's a lot of brands now where we're blurring the lines, like, so influencer marketing, because in essence, influencer marketing it does fall on the side of organic more so. Like, it would be an organic manager that's going to provide posts to an influencer, that kind of thing. But there's still going to be a financial transaction. That influencer is either going to want products or payment. So there's kind of, you could, in essence, grow a brand from zero through influencer marketing, but at some point there's going to be a financial transaction. So is that paid? There's kind of, we're seeing blurring of lines much more now, and a lot of brands are just leveraging influencer marketing, not ads, and then that influencer content then can be used again and again organically. So there is kind of a blurring of lines at the moment between the three disciplines. That's not to mention just pure customer contact as well. Like Molly said, with a small local brand, they might really drive business through just their inbox messages, like their Instagram page. People might book tables through it. So because all the platforms are moving so quickly and brands are adjusting and small businesses are getting more savvy, that kind of all three areas, so paid ads, organic, and customer communication, like your customer service side of it, they're kind of, there's a lot of crossover between all three from my point of view, for sure.
I think this question around, because this question can get asked a lot across all tactics, is can a business survive just on X?
Yeah.
And there's always exceptions to the rule. We could sit here and say, you know, as a strategist, my view is to say let's be integrated and use all the tactics that are appropriate for a brand, and generally speaking, you'll get better results when you have multiple things working in conjunction with each other rather than just one thing on its own.
Yeah, totally.
It's a general rule across everything, right? But then there's always exceptions to the rule. There are brands out there that grow completely organically and haven't used paid from the start. There's brands out there that have no organic presence really, but, you know, do significant revenue through paid.
Yeah.
So there are exceptions to every rule. I think what we just need to look at is say any brand can survive and can flourish using a specific tactic very, very well. Does that mean that they shouldn't use another tactic? No.
Yeah.
They still can, and they can still get results through that. I think what's clear is, and I don't think any social platform has tried to hide this, is Facebook has shareholders that they need to please. And in order to do that, they need to be making money, need to be making profit. It's always been a case that as you start to introduce ads to any platform, the reach and the ability to reach your customers organically is throttled.
Yeah.
So businesses that depended just on organic social, you know, 5-10 years ago, Those businesses, some businesses, disappeared overnight because Facebook throttled their ability to access their own audience. So, you're getting millions and millions of impressions previously, and then overnight the algorithm changes and they're reaching, 100 people and are forced to use paid media to reach the same audience that they were previous. So it's not about whether a business can survive using any one tactic. Does it make smart business sense to do so? No, because if you're essentially renting a customer or renting an audience from another platform and you don't own that audience in any way, then you're at massive risk. So I think what paid and organic social do really well together is how can we take an organically grown audience where we're getting engagement and we're looking at less tangible metrics around how customers are engaging with us, and take those customers, convert them through paid, monetize them, and create owned customers in the end, which you can communicate with in a multitude of ways, continuing through paid social, maybe through email, maybe through on-site messaging. There's a whole range of things you can do with that customer once you own the customer, rather than rent it from another platform.
Sure.
Makes sense. So with all that in mind, this might be a question that is not easy to answer, but if somebody is watching this and they've recently started the business or they're just trying to grow it and they understand the importance of a paid strategy, but perhaps don't have a huge budget, would you have some top tips for those kind of businesses? As in, how would you, what would you recommend for them to put their money?
Okay. I mean, assuming that the aim of your paid strategy is to drive revenue, which obviously more or less always is going to be, but sometimes you just want to drive brand awareness. You can do that. You can drive brand reach really cheaply. But from my point of view, working more or less solely at the moment with e-commerce brands, we're always looking at the bottom line. So whenever I'm looking at a new client and their strategy, my overarching aim is going to be to drive conversions. So assuming that's what the client or the business, whoever wants to do, I think it really depends on the data that you've got available within the account. So if it's a brand new account, there's no point asking Facebook for purchases unless you've got purchase data running through the pixel. So, I mean, that's to say you've even got the pixel on the site. So make sure you've got a Facebook pixel on the site, and then start to ask Facebook for lower funnel conversion events. So instead of going, you ultimately want purchases, but you're not going to be able to ask for purchases because Facebook doesn't know what your purchases look like. So you start to ask them for content views. And once you've got 100 content views, then you can move to product views. And you basically, as quickly as you can, move through those data thresholds until you get to a point where you've got 100 purchases running through the pixel. And then you can start to ask Facebook for more purchases. And Facebook, the algorithm, has then got enough data to know what your customer looks like. So from my point of view, it's about getting as much data about your customers as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Obviously, that there's more. It's a bit more complicated than I've suggested there, but it's really data dependent for me.
Yeah.
I mean, what we've got to remember is the question: where should I put my money?
Yeah.
The absolute joy of organic social as a small business is that it requires your time. Molly will take you through the process a little bit more, but essentially what she's super, super good at is producing really engaging content, and combining that with beautiful imagery and copy and, targeting it at people who are engaging with the brand and, all of the things that go with organic social, but it's her time that is the valuable thing. So if we're talking from a brand perspective, it's like, where should I put my money? If you've got money, if you're doing this yourself, if you've got money, that goes into paid. If you've got time, then you push that into organic. And if you've got that combination where you've got starting to get more money but a lot less time, that's when you hire an agency to do the work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's it basically. Yeah. So I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit more as we go through this about the kind of process that Molly goes through in terms of organic. But that's really the difference. Is that's why lots of brands start with organic social. It's the first thing to do because it only takes their time to do, and that's you're fairly time rich as you start a new brand. And if it's a content brand, then that's where all your time should be going, really. And then paid, if any kind of money that you do have to invest, use that to expand brand awareness. And like Rob says, collect data, direct to consumer brands start to work people through the customer journey from that initial awareness through organic social and engagement through organic social, pick up that using Facebook's algorithm and start to promote product and services to those people, and then drive them into the website, start to collect data through the website, and eventually to the point where they purchase. And once you've got people purchasing, expanding that audience out is where Facebook beats every other platform out, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the case. Once you've hit a certain amount of purchases, the power of Facebook is to duplicate that and find more people that look like your customers, and that's really where a lot of my strategy and the way I work with clients is about getting to that point and leveraging that functionality. So for sure, Facebook is the most powerful platform for that, for sure, Lewis. Yeah.
You just see my cat's tail in the background then. The door just opened and there was just a tail.
So Facebook, we talked a little bit about that. There's so many platforms now. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, Messenger, LinkedIn, Snapchat. There's loads of them. So do you think that from both an organic and a paid point of view that those different platforms suit different niches and audiences and would work better or worse for different types of business?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, each platform has pretty much been designed for a particular audience. They have in their head when they're making these platforms and social channels who's going to use them. So if you look at LinkedIn, for example, it's for professionals, it's for businesses, it's professionals, it's for where you go if you want to find a job, where you go if you're talking about your career. You don't go on LinkedIn to probably talk about what you can do on the weekend, but you go to LinkedIn to talk about what you've been doing in your career. So that's where that channel where that channel is different. So for an e-commerce brand, you're probably not going to really use LinkedIn to promote your products, whereas you'll use Facebook and Instagram because they have been designed now for shopping. So you have Facebook and Instagram shopping features which users can then go on and buy products. You are now able to use Instagram stories to recommend your favorite shop, so you can add it's like a sticker that you add to your stories and people can click on it and you can share your favorite independent businesses. So that platform is now going way more down the route of like e-commerce. They're kind of these features for buying products, whereas again LinkedIn is still it's still about talking about your professions and your businesses, and that's kind of where that is. And then TikTok and Snapchat, which are being used by businesses, especially TikTok has become really big with brands, but they've been designed for video sharing and probably more of the individual than a business. Obviously businesses are tapping into those platforms again, like Pinterest. You pin things that you're interested in. It's kind of it's almost like a search engine for ideas where brands can use words so that their audience can find their products. So interior design companies use it a lot because it's very visual and people will be going on there to find what they're interested in. And we know that YouTube is it's purely video content. So all these platforms have been designed for particular audiences, and I think it's just, as a brand, I don't really like the idea of like, let's use as many platforms as we can, because it's kind of, I think you then end up with some better than others. I think as you get bigger, and if you are a brand with loads of money, then you can look at having YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them. But I think if you're definitely a small brand, find the 2 or find the 3 that are really perfect for you and own them, produce content really good for them. And then if further down the line you want to have a Pinterest or you want to look into TikTok when you feel really comfortable with what you're doing, then definitely look at it. But I don't always think that more is more, because you might have a Twitter channel, that you might have Instagram and Facebook channels with thousands and thousands of followers, but then you might have a Twitter that has 2. You don't.
And it looks bad, doesn't it, when you've got
You go to
yeah.
your website, you have amazing Instagram, amazing Facebook, and then someone goes on your Twitter and you haven't posted since like 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point in it really.
Yeah.
But you know, there is so many channels out there to use. It's just, I think, really sitting back when you're starting a brand and really looking at why these platforms have been created, who those platforms are created for, and then see how they can fit in with your strategy.
Yeah.
And also, you know, do you have the money to produce the content to go in these that will stand out?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a small brand producing amazing YouTube content, you might not have the capability just yet.
Absolutely.
So, again, that's when you look at further down the line. TikTok, it's great, but do you have the resource? And you know, like LinkedIn, I know that Rob, you said before, LinkedIn ads are super expensive. So so then if you're trying to then do that, it's like, is it possible? So I think it's just about really defining who you are and what what's important for you.
It's interesting about, as new platforms come out, I'm all for like diversifying where your content is pushed to. As long as you're pushing your content out with purpose. What we try and get away from as an agency is from moving people away from that, oh shit, what should I post today thing, that mode of thinking. So it's a bit more planned and structured and posting content with purpose. So, you know, every post that you push out, it's like, well, what is this attempting to do? You know, what are we trying to give back to users? What are we trying to gain from users? Is it in line with what the brand thinking is? Is it in line with the product thinking? But if you look at a platform like TikTok, it's basically where Facebook was 15 years ago. Is it 15 years ago now? It's been around for a while, 10
probably,
years. You know, it's you know, my daughter's like 10 and on there and got 1,000 followers just from posting, you know, videos that, if we're honest, aren't absolutely crammed full of talent. Right? And that's not, you know, that's not against my daughter. I just, you know, there's the rare child that's on the West End stage who has the real spark. But you know, it's essentially it's a channel where you can build an organic audience very, very quickly. You can build awareness very, very quickly through fairly raw content. But you know, it's not a platform that's really, it's just starting to develop a paid offering now.
I mean, we've only just been given access to TikTok advertising in the UK. It's only just rolling out. So, I mean, and from my point of view, from a paid perspective, like, how much value, I mean, considering Snapchat and TikTok particularly, they're skewing to a much younger audience. These people might be your customers and have disposable income in 5 to 10 years, but how many 15-year-olds have got, you know, how much value is there on the platform? That's particularly from a paid perspective where I'm focusing on driving revenue. But from like a branding perspective, and if you are a really youth-focused brand, then for sure you need to be on those platforms. But, you know, if you're selling a higher ticket item and your average customer, your Shopify data is saying your average customer's over 25, you know, I mean, I'm 31, I don't have a Snapchat or a TikTok, and I won't.
Yeah, but you got banned from the both, didn't you?
No, absolutely not, of course, no.
It's... But I think there's a difference here, isn't there, between, because what Rob said is really interesting, is these guys might be your customers in 5 years' time. The question you ask yourself is, am I building a business or a brand? Right? Do I just want to flog stuff now? Or do I want to build a brand for the long term? Because
for sure.
They don't advertise much anymore for various reasons, but cigarette companies did a really good job of doing this. It's not morally right, but they did a very, very good job of recruiting children to be future users of their product. Right? That's why people are still smoking now. Your industry, every industry survives on recruiting
new customers for sure.
Customers, right? And eventually your customer base, you will either age with your customer base or you will acquire a younger audience, or you do a mix of both. You know,
Yeah.
this premium brands do the same thing. It's you know, you aspire when you grow up to own.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, it was Burberry.
Yeah.
You know, is that kind of thing. So there is an element of that. Do you? All brands say we need to make money now, and that's obvious, and that's absolutely right. But also thinking about how do I create a brand that stands the test of time, and partly that's by acquiring younger customers through new platforms.
Yeah. And you need to have some budget. Like, you've got to have some spare budget if you're thinking that far ahead. You know, if the budget's limited, you're not going to be looking at you know, customers who are going to become purchasers in 5 years' time. So I would approach it. What are the, you know, short-term, medium-term goals? Where does your customer spend most of their time? And for paid at the moment, as a default, it is Facebook and Instagram. Mostly because the advertising functionality is so good across both platforms that you can manage it all in one interface. As we mentioned, there's such powerful audiences that you can leverage. The performance, the performance marketing side of Facebook and Instagram is really strong. And then the creative side of it, so the way the ads look and the multiple formats that you can serve across both platforms and the Messenger app and WhatsApp just means that Facebook at the moment is the best choice for a paid advertiser. But that's not to say that LinkedIn doesn't have, you know, for business to business, you're going to go to LinkedIn, like Molly said. Twitter, again, because Twitter's not that visual. So from my point of view, you know, people are using Twitter to argue, and I don't necessarily think they're using Twitter when they're in a more calm scrolling. Oh, I like that. Let's click and let's look on the site. I don't see Twitter as a real e-com channel. Obviously, you know, you can get conversions there, you can build brand awareness, but their adverts are more text heavy. So as we move, like, you know, the pivot to video has been going on for 3-4 years, but really now, when I'm advertising and I'm using a static image versus the video, you can more or less guarantee the video will drive cheaper cost per click or cheaper conversions, or more, the volume will be better. So, you know, Twitter's not really that set up to give you that like rich media experience. So I tend not to go down there. But like we've said, it is a case of treating each brand on a case by case basis and deciding based on the goals and where the customer hangs out, basically.
From an organic perspective, Mon, what are you know, how do you, there's some obvious differences between platforms, but how do you kind of position your attention in the specific platforms where you think, well, you know, this is more of a customer service thing, this is, you know, this is more of a audience building thing, you know, how do you kind of split up the platforms in your head when you're deciding what to use for different clients?
Like, again, it comes back to, for me, what are they designed for? So for example, you know, LinkedIn, it would be business to business. So then for me, it would go, okay, so what is your business? You know, are you a service? So are you a school? Are you a service? Are you college? You know, then you would look at business to business, or, you know, again, people that are on there for careers, for skills, for professional levels. So that's when LinkedIn would come in. And again, you know, Instagram, again, it's very linked to Facebook. And I think e-commerce now, you need to have Facebook and Instagram. I think it's almost important as having, you know, a really great looking store. They are storefronts. They're now being designed to be storefronts. So you're an e-commerce, especially if you're a visual brand, if you're a fashion brand or a makeup brand, any brand realistically, I think it's about having really amazing content that really stands out. You know, it's as important now really than brands having, you know, magazine pages, which brands would pay thousands of pounds. You'd have these iconic photo shoots, but now that's kind of what it needs to be. And you can create pieces of content, like you can create hero pieces of content that then can be split down in lots. So, you know, if you're kind of a brand that needs to go more down that route, then I think the visual platforms are what are really important. Your Instagram, your Facebooks. But then again, with Twitter, I think Twitter's all about having a really good community management strategy. There's some brands that do it really well. It's like Domino's. If you go into their community management, they will reply to customers and their replies go viral. So then you'll be on Facebook, there's people screenshotting their tweets and they're going like viral from these like hilarious replies. And that's just really clever because that hasn't gone through anything. You just have to be witty and come up with a really good response. But something like that then works as this amazing piece of content that you can use across everything, and then creates a tone of voice for your brand. So, Twitter, it's a great place to still have, especially if you are someone who's got a large audience, and if you're going to have people, Domino's, it's Domino's, it's massive. You're probably going to have hundreds and thousands of people trying to get in contact with you on a day-to-day basis, which is where Twitter, again, is good for that. As like a, as a complaints platform. So I think, in terms of, those are kind of like a really strong main three. They're very defined. So, in terms of a potential client, it's just about sitting down, understanding their goals, understanding what content they have, and who are their audience, who are going to engage with their brand, which is so important for organic. It is about engagement. If your posts are being engaged with, then your post is going to show up on people's newsfeed. If you're producing content but no one's engaging with them, liking them, no one will see them. And it's the point. You need to make sure that you're having, whether you are just trying to sell a product, you still need to make sure that what you're producing is engaging enough to sell that product. Otherwise, you do run the risk of your content being pushed down and your audience not seeing them. And if a new audience just see it and things have got no likes or comments, it's kind of like meh. So, each platform definitely has its benefits. It has, has its negatives, has its benefits. But I would just say, like, to anyone starting out a brand, it's just sit down, have a look through them all, try them out, see what's best for you, and have define who you are, your audience are, and realistically what you want to achieve from using these platforms.
Yeah. And if people are using several platforms, I suppose the next thing is that Lewis has talked about, if you've got money, you do paid. If you've got time, you do organic. I suppose time does become more of an issue if you're trying to manage your social media on several platforms and do the community management and that kind of thing. How easy is it to automate that stuff and be effective?
Well, there is there's like amazing platforms out there which help you schedule. So I like to work in a way you can produce content calendars, on these platforms. You just schedule in the content, you work in advance. If you're doing it yourself as a brand, it might become a little bit more difficult, but even if that means that once or twice a month, and while you're starting out, you make sure that you set aside 2 or 3 days a month where you sit there, you write all that content and you schedule them in. So scheduling content is definitely, is a really important thing. I couldn't do my job without scheduling content, because you end up spending half your day, for a post, which you have to. If you're doing Instagram stories, you have to kind of do it all. I think you can't, especially for some brands. If you're, if you're a fashion store, for example, you might be like, oh, do you know what? We want to sell this product. Let's do a 50% off weekend sale. You can't then be like, oh, well, we've already scheduled in loads of content, so we can't. You have to be agile. You do have to be able to think fast. That's what the platforms are designed for. They're designed for you to be able to pick up your phone and do things super, super quick. But I think, definitely, scheduling systems, you do have to pay for on a monthly business, but they come with really good reporting features. So, you can look back at what your performance has been for the last month. Sprout Social that we use, for example, you can do LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram stories on there. So there are really good platforms out there, and also content and making sure it's all scheduled and being prepared and being organized. I think if you're organized, then your content will perform better, because you'll have more time to actually produce the content and make it really good, rather than kind of rush and get things out, which is when mistakes happen. You might not get the message out that you want to, but scheduling it in means that you can really think and you plan out what you're doing.
That's interesting, actually, because sorry, Rob, carry on.
I was just going to say, even with organic automation, we use Sprout Social. There's obviously other platforms. There's still a lot of it's not fully automated. It's not. There's still heavy lifting. You've got to collate the content. You've got to plan it. You've then got to schedule it. I think there's a misconception that because everyone uses social media in their personal lives, that it's really easy to run it for a brand, but there is a big gap between running 5 platforms for a brand with a particular tone of voice that needs to be professional and perfect and hit the right hit every time. So automation tools, they do save us a lot of time, but there's still, there's still got to be a lot of like strategic planning and forward planning going in.
Okay.
In terms of paid automation, I mean, there's that espresso and there's similar tools that, you know, will manage your bids and things like that. But I think what's really valuable for a brand to have is someone who really understands paid media buying, and someone who's there, even if they're using an automation tool, someone who's there, you know, that can spot problems and can change things quickly. So like Molly said, you know, even though there's automation, you still need to be able to be agile and jump on things. Because social media is 24/7, 365, you know, so that there can be automation for when, you know, you haven't got your media buyer, you haven't got your Molly or your Rob working. But, you know, you do need to have someone, whether that's an agency or within your business, who's really just focusing on these channels, regardless of automation, from my point of view, you know.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think one of the big things that people need to remember, and this is really prevalent now, and for good reason, is how quickly the tone can change across a whole platform, and how quickly your message can seem outdated, inappropriate, ill-timed, and it's not something you're actively doing. So this is where that key between, yes, you utilize automation to make the things that you're doing day to day more efficient, but still have someone who understands not just the technology, but the whole kind of ecosystem and how things shift and change. And it always feels a bit odd to mix, you know, advertising and consumerism with things that I would deem as much more important, like Black Lives Matter and all of these various things that are happening at the moment that represent massive shifts in people's views, both on social media and in real life, right? So that's where the danger of automation comes in, is that you utilize it to the point where you no longer recognize what's happening day to day. And with something that was absolutely appropriate, you know, a week ago, presented to someone at just the wrong time. Because the tone has shifted. And I'm not even talking about messages I'm not talking about a change in opinion. I'm just talking about an absolutely valid sales message dropped at exactly the wrong time.
I mean, I've seen examples of it in the last few weeks. I won't obviously name any brands, but a big Dutch fashion retailer, all their channels, they had so much backlash because it was the day of the Black Lives Matter protest in Dam Square, and they posted, I mean, I can't say exactly what the content was, but it was a sales message, and the backlash for that brand was huge. And that's then led to people interrogating that brand even more about, you know, do they really stand with the protesters they were saying they were? So yeah, for sure. Whereas if there'd been someone just, you know, like, right, okay, pause it, pause your automation. You know.
I mean, some of this stuff, you know, automation can exacerbate the issue. It's clear that it exists, and big brands make mistakes. Pepsi is the famous one of, you know,
I know.
Was it Kylie Jenner?
Yeah, was it Kendall? Rob, no, Kendall.
Oh yeah, it was Kendall.
She attempted to
diffuse
essentially create world. She tried to solve general world violence through the gifting of a can of Pepsi Max to an armed police officer. But this was way before all the Black Lives Matter movement became what it is today. It was a bit like it was a bit of a kind of Coca-Cola join hands across the world type thing.
Yeah,
you know.
It, didn't she?
It was basically the equivalent of the hippie putting a flower into the end of a barrel of a gun, which was obviously quite a poignant moment.
But with a Pepsi.
But so expectations have changed, you know, that kind of symbolic for a brand, it just, you know, it shouldn't have gone out really.
Exactly. I mean, this is basically, it's a bunch of guys in a room thinking, yes, this is a great idea, without everyone has the ability to make that mistake. So it's not, automation exacerbates it because that stuff goes out. But this happened with Pepsi, huge buying power. A commercial that likely cost millions to produce, that paid probably in excess of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for the talent, and it was probably a heavily thought out idea, and it just didn't resonate.
Just didn't land,
Yeah, and you can have that, but now that's a majorly thought out thing. The same effect can be had on a brand with a single ad that goes out to one person at one point, and that can spiral and become, rightly or wrongly, become a huge issue for that brand because you're not really close to the messaging and the timing of what you're putting out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I will. I'm going to link to a blog in the description as well. Just everything you've been talking about reminded me of a recent blog on our site that our head of creative wrote that was that touched on this kind of thing. So one of his points was that the platforms now, like Rob mentioned there, they're so instantaneous in terms of you can put things out very quickly, but it's led to perhaps people forgetting of the behind the scenes work that goes into it and the prep that you should be doing. It's not just because it appears on Instagram very quickly. You shouldn't neglect the kind of the back office work that goes into creating that content beforehand. Anyway, it was just a segue there, but I'll link to that in the description as well.
You love a good segue, don't you, Matt?
I love a segue.
Cross down.
Speaking of segues, this is you, Matt. Come on, I've just said speaking of segues, and then you're supposed to swoop.
This is all going off a cliff. No, is that not
That's a different kind of segue.
Yes, it is. No, I didn't know what you were trying to steer me towards. Then I've lost.
Just the next point, I suppose.
Well, I suppose what we were just talking about links quite nicely with the current boycott on the Facebook advertising side of things. So I was interested in your take on that and whether you think that will have an impact, because obviously these companies are so huge now. Can they be taken to task?
Well, as is this podcast, really. Us talking about it is potentially going to influence elections and all sorts of things due to our large listenership.
There is a chance.
Yeah.
I think for me, to paraphrase or steal the phrase, Facebook is too big to fail at the moment.
I agree.
What are the alternatives? There are alternatives, but it is the most powerful advertising platform. So in terms of from an operational point of view, I don't think that there is, in terms of paid social particularly, there isn't that much choice for advertisers to change, if they want the same functionality. But morally, Facebook needs to combat the hate speech that it lays on the platform. I absolutely believe that. But at the same time, I'm going to spend my clients' advertising dollars and pounds where they want to. And at the moment, that is on Facebook. Obviously, we're not dealing with multi-million-dollar budgets, but at the moment, I haven't seen, I think there's going to be more brands that are going to do it, but for how long are they going to do it? People will need to return, I would say, unless another platform is able to steal the audience.
I think
we could set one up.
Should we just do it quickly?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you call it? Alternative Facebook.
Facebook. It's like Facebook, but it's just based on small rivers, tiny rivers through local parks.
We've seen Twitter is now, marking the president of the United States, is fact checking Donald Trump's tweets.
It's obviously a difficult one. Well, I say it's a difficult one. America has this view of free speech. It's quite specific and obviously quite attached to their constitution for various reasons. Yeah. But I think I don't know, the cynical side of me says that some of the bigger brands are just, trying, it's a vanity, yes, we've boycotted and then they will slowly reintroduce spend again. And I don't know how much that's going to change. Facebook is, asking the question, should we be the arbiter of what is right and wrong in terms of free speech? And that's difficult as well. We would all sit here and say it's quite easy to point and say, well, this is wrong and this is right. And the grey areas are much easier to spot.
Yeah.
But
I think there's some quarters within social advertising that are actually saying that the brands are doing this, yet it's convenient for them to be seen to be removing ad dollars from a platform that, on some people would say, and I tend to agree with, does allow hate speech to flourish. But they're doing it because it looks good, but at the same time it's giving them leverage over Facebook, because Facebook owns all of the data. You don't have access to that data outside the platform. There isn't, so it is kind of Facebook's being completely in control. And I think that on some level, advertisers are using this as a tool to get some leverage back, take some power back from the platform, because us as advertisers, we're the people that are paying Facebook, but we've lost all of the control on some level, I would say. And there's an argument for that, for sure, I've seen on the internet lately.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is.
No.
From a capitalist, purely consumer perspective,
yes,
it's
David,
insane.
Facebook.
Yeah, it's insane to remove your money from there. From a moral standpoint, I get it. And
there's definitely a conflict. Us as advertisers and people that use the platform, we have to separate the two.
Yeah. I suppose there's an argument for these brands that are pulling their money to just say, well, continue to make money through Facebook, but maybe just put that into causes that helps to kind of stem that thing at the source.
There's definitely a balance.
Should you stop advertising on Google because if you search for certain things, that it will present you with the results related to those things? I mean, it's they have deniability, and this is Facebook's deniability, is we're just the platform that sits in the middle. We don't decide who says what. But the truth is, they also do. There is an element of them deciding. When
I'm trying to sell a product, whatever that product may be, I've got to separate from the fact that there is an argument that social media platforms, particularly Facebook, are eroding democracy. The Russian interference in the American election. Similar things with troll factories and bots in the UK, Brexit vote, whilst I'm politically engaged, I've also got to sell that product to my clients. So I have to separate the two. So this is probably the most I've thought about it for a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think we've got the answers at all.
I like to think I do, but I know I don't.
Well, talking about having the answers, I was thinking it's probably time to wrap up.
Yeah.
Before we finish, I was going to ask if you've got any predictions in the world of social media for the coming 12 months or 18 months. What do you reckon is coming next? We talked a bit about the rise of social commerce and how that's kind of really amalgamated paid and organic. What do you think might happen in the coming year? Do you think it's going to be a continuation of that?
Well, Facebook and Instagram, they've already started rolling it out. So, the shopping feature is now becoming storefronts where you can almost, you can design a storefront on that shopping feature now. You can make it look almost a bit like your website. And also things like they're trialing out social shopping in the captions. So I think Victoria Beckham actually used it the other day. So you can then in the caption you can add, and then it will be the product. So now, so then in fact you could have multiple products all within that caption. So I think definitely in terms of e-commerce, there's Facebook and Instagram are going to be taking that further. Then they've already started rolling out. You've probably all seen it when you do Instagram stories, and you can you recommend an independent shop. So I think those things are definitely going to be. You kind of don't really think they can get any bigger, but they're definitely going to get more, way more into e-commerce, especially with coronavirus, and a lot of high streets are slowing down, and with people worried about second wave and stuff. I think these platforms, and that's a worldwide thing, not just the UK. So I think they're definitely these people are incredibly clever, and I think they'll definitely now use the platform more to kind of, make them as actual, almost like e-commerce websites themselves, which they are, but I think it will definitely kind of, that is the route that I think it's going to definitely keep going down, is I think an online shopping e-commerce route for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think from a paid perspective, the only definite I can see in the next 12 to 18 months is change. Costs are going to fluctuate. We've seen initially at the beginning of the coronavirus, costs dropped dramatically. People pulled back ad spend. We're seeing them rise again. So it's a constant changing market for paid media buying on for paid social. But then I think in terms of a bit more broadly, we've seen, as I mentioned earlier, that video, we've really pivoted towards video on the platforms. But now I think we're going to see even more of a push for really native looking ads. So user generated content, pulling from particularly organic. So your ads look like your customers have made them, or even include your customers in the videos and testimonials. I think we're going to really see a move away from ads that look like ads. Because obviously they say sponsored, but then the rest of it, you've got control over that. So as we've seen really slick ads, I think there's going to be a move to we're going to see lower costs if you've got native looking ads, and there's some parity between that and your user generated content. That's something I'm really interested in, and I'm looking to trial more for our clients, starting to see some good results. So that's something I think is going to continue for sure.
That's interesting. Great. Secret adverts that you don't even know are adverts.
Yeah,
and then suddenly you've bought something.
Google's been doing.
We've made ourselves sound terrible. We said we smoking. What was it? The smoking industry is a model for the way we sell.
That was Lewis. Lewis brought that one up.
But no, not secret ads, but just like non-interrupted. So they're not, they're not. And as targeting gets better, my aim is the ad is a product that you want to buy, that you've considered buying already. So then we show you an ad. So it's not annoying. It's something that you want. Why wouldn't you want to see an ad for it? That's the aim.
That's fair.
I predict that that my daughter will get to 2,000 followers.
What is she doing on her videos? Is it not very interesting stuff?
No, I jest. She does have talent. TikTok is basically just full of either you miming someone else's words. She does various dances that I can't do any of those, but there are TikTok challenges where you do a dance to a piece of music.
Yeah.
What else is she doing?
We can link her in the description if you like.
Let's not do that. The funny thing about the
micro influence.
It's micro in two senses. She's quite small as well. It's interesting because she was supposed to have. She was allowed on TikTok with supervision on a private account, and then she told her mum that she had got like 500 followers or something, and was questioned as to how she had got 500 followers on a private account. And it turns out her account was still private. She was just accepting every follow request. So,
got to grow that engagement.
Yes, she's doing good. She'll be a social media manager in no time.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I wouldn't mind it. I could be making tens of pounds. I could be through influencer marketing. You know what? I think my prediction is that Facebook and Instagram will continue to steal anything that works from any other platform.
That's a fair one.
What have they released? Instagram's released Reels, which is a TikTok clone.
Yeah.
Stories. Just let's remember that Stories was Snapchat. It was stolen directly, and without any bashfulness whatsoever, they were like, "Yes, it is a clone of that." So they will continue to do that,
aren't they? They're all just
it's really difficult to imagine how. I mean, TikTok has has come from a small platform and has rapidly grown with a young audience. It tends to be the case. It's a younger audiences hit these platforms. Music
Early
was,
uptakers, yeah.
you know, similar thing. But then they hit the monetization point, or they deal with, you know, I talk a lot about not using functions and features to sell things, because other people can come along and just replicate that, and that's exactly what happens with social media platforms. So it'll be interesting to see whether TikTok survives, or is you know, purchased by some larger conglomerate like Facebook, because Facebook has Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger. What else is that? All they've got? Various others.
Is that the whole family? I think.
Yeah, the Facebook family of apps. And with TikTok, there's, you know, it's a Chinese company. There's obviously some basic concerns around that. So will that inhibit
possibly,
monetization in the West? You know.
Yeah. Well, this is what's happened. It was banned in India, I think.
Yeah.
And Instagram instantly released Reels to fill that gap. So that will be the interesting thing, is how that, number one, how you monetize such a young audience when they potentially don't have the buying power themselves. But you know, you're building brand awareness and maybe influencing purchases via the children through to parents.
I mean,
So that's one element. And just I think we'll see maybe start to see if some of those influencers will move to, because TikTok's largely based on those big influencers with huge followings on that platform. Will they move to, if Instagram can kind of acquire some of those, because of the risk? If TikTok gets banned in the US, then some businesses are just going to, you know, businesses and individuals are just going to disappear overnight because their whole audience exists on that single platform. So, I can't see a world without Facebook and Instagram at the moment, to be honest with you.
Not for
I think
a bit.
Twitter will remain to be like the platform of journalists and people who want to consume news that is just within their own belief system. Their echo chamber. You know, it's just you're either lots of liberal people talking about liberal things, or just lots of right-wing people talking about right-wing things. Very little
occasionally fighting
in between. Every now and then they come across each other and get furious. They look like the Sims bubble, just a cloud of arms and legs fighting, and then they go their own way again. Who knows?
Wow, I think you're right. I think those will be around for a while to stay yet, won't they?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I remember moving from MySpace. Molly, you might be too young for this. I don't know whether you were on that.
I
was
a big
MySpace.
Big on MySpace. I remember moving from MySpace to Facebook, and using various means to circumnavigate my college's restrictions on access to social media. I can't imagine Facebook not being around. I can't remember whether I could imagine a world without MySpace, but I can't imagine a world without Facebook and Instagram. It does feel like it's too big to fail now. But what would happen? Where would people go? Would they go outside? Where would they go?
No, not now.
No. People only go outside to take photos for Instagram. No.
Where would all the photos go? Just from a photo storage point of view, it sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It's been good.
Right then. That was really interesting. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Rob, for your time and for sharing your insights and knowledge on the world of social medias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis, for helping steer things along as ever. You're always good value.
Thank you, Matt. You're always good value for money.
Thanks. I put a new jumper on for this one, which only the viewers will be able to see, but people on Spotify, I'm wearing a pink jumper, just to let you know. And thank you to everyone who's listening or watching this. Like, subscribe, share, follow, comment, tell your friends, you know,
retweet
that people do. Yeah. Can you retweet? Retweet this?
Quote retweet with a hashtag.
Put us in
do a
your
hashtag.
stories, please.
Yeah, put us in your stories.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone.
Maybe
who's
print
been
some
involved.
flyers off and pin them up in your local area.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time on E-commerce Exchange.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks once again for listening to E-commerce Exchange from Eastside Co. If you're looking for help with your organic or paid social media or any digital marketing tactic at all, in fact, give us a shout. Email us on info@eastsideco.com. Thanks for listening.